Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Secure 2.0 top changes that you need to know for retirement. While we wait for others to join, we will be putting up a poll and you can self-identify if you would like to. We will share the results. So please go ahead and fill in your responses as we watch these tallies and wait for others to join us. Thank you. Hello and welcome. As we noted, we are running a quick poll this morning or this afternoon to self-identify your current status, just so we have a better sense of what who this information pertains to the most through this 30-minute session. Of course, we'll take questions at the end, but please fill in the status poll and we will share the results right before we begin the webinar here in 3 minutes. Hello and welcome. We invite you to check in on our Secure 2.0 status poll so we can understand best where our audience here is most interested in the information. We can fine-tune the presentation for today. We will be sharing the results as well. So as you log in here, please feel free to take the poll and we'll share the results here shortly before we begin. Thank you. Hello and welcome. We'll be starting in about a minute. We invite you to take the Secure 2.0 status poll so we can best suit our content to the audience. So if you want to self-identify, that would be terrific. We'll share the results and we will be starting here at 1 o'clock. And it is 1 o'clock. We will end the poll here and show the results. And then Brian, I will let you kick off the meeting. So thank you all for participating. As you can see, 47% are 401k participants. We've got 53% retired and 12% that have a 529 plan. So that will help us in making sure that we've got pertinent content and we spend more time on those things that are informational for you. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will pass it on to Brian Bohnsack, Vice President of 360 Financial.
Thanks, Joni. Hi, this is Brian Bohnsack, Senior Vice President of 360 Financial. Mike Rogers and I will be guiding you through this Secure 2.0 update, changes you should know about your retirement. Earlier this year, Congress passed a package called the Secure 2.0. it really helped to incentivize retirement savings. Lots of changes going on, create a lot of opportunities for people to look at their retirement saving strategies. And I think this webinar will give us a good overview of highlighting those key changes, what you need to know, including tax credits, required minimum distributions, catch-ups, and rollovers. Lots of things to go over, and Nick's going to be doing a great job on that. So we'll guide you through this here over the next 35 to 45 minutes. But we would love to hear from you. We have a chat section in the webinar that you can put your questions in. We'll pause, take the questions, and we'll also leave some time at the end for your questions. We also will have a few more minutes to share a little bit more about 360 and our services. If you want to stick around for that, we'd love to share a little bit more about that after our webinar is over. And finally, we'd like to hear from you. We do these seminars on a regular basis, so take a 1-minute survey with 8 simple questions at the end to give us some feedback about the webinar and how we can help improve these or add new topics going forward. So I'd love to turn it over to Mike Rogers. Mike is the president and founder of 360 Financial. He's established this firm back in 1995. Before that, he spent 5 years with 2 large investment firms. He's a fiduciary. He uses his 30 years of experience leading a team of financials to help orchestrate, implement, customize strategies to fit everybody's financial needs. We work with retirees, we work with qualified retirement plans, professionals, and thriving business owners. So go ahead and take it away, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks, Brian. I appreciate that nice introduction and opening. So now I feel the pressure to deliver a good program for our participants. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. As Brian said, this is a new Secure Act 2.0. It's called Secure 2.0. We'll get into a whole slideshow presentation for it. And I will tell you, it's a lot of information, hundreds of pages long. We've kind of narrowed it down into what we think are the most timely topics. And it's going to be real important that and I'll bring it up throughout the program, talking to your wealth manager, your advisor about how do these specific rules and the rule changes impact not only your planning for today, but over the next few years. And so I'll do my best to highlight, here's something you need to talk about while we're going through the program. Here's something you could wait a little bit because it's not going to really kick in for a couple of years. But a lot of it is really, really important information. And hopefully you'll find it very, very helpful today. So I'm going to screen share and jump right into the presentation. And Brian, as always, let's just try to, if you see something that, maybe I could use a little bit more background information provided, just jump right on in and we'll try to make it a little bit conversational as best as we can on a PowerPoint presentation and a webinar, but we'll try to do that. Okay. So let's just jump right into what is Secure 2.0. First of all, it came on the heels of Secure Act, which was in 2019, which were some of the changes. And I'll talk a little bit about the 2019 changes when it gets to required minimum distributions. So we finally had passed some new legislation at the beginning of this year. When we did our Outlook webinar, which was about a month ago, we did it on January the 11th, if I recall correctly. We didn't really have a lot of this information at that time either. That program was more about, what do we think the markets are going to do? What do we think interest rates might do? What do we think inflation is going to do? And interesting enough, Powell was on today, and some of the markets are moving a little bit based on some of his comments. Today's program is really going to be about this exciting tax law change. And I say exciting, not sarcastically. I think there's some things here that are really going to be helpful for our participants of our 401k plans, for our business owners, to a certain extent, the highly compensated participants who haven't been able to do some of the things in the past. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this. And this all came out, of really the desire by Congress to come up with these 10 changes to increase workplace plans. First of all, so we needed more plans in place and to get more people contributing. Because right now it's about 50% of people just don't have any money saved for retirement. And that's a major issue. Now, let me repeat that. About 50% of people in this country don't have anything saved for retirement. And so part of the Secure 2.0 is to encourage people to act on their own and save on their own and get ready for this. This period of their life, this phase of their life. Okay. So it's really three different areas that I see here. And we kind of broke it down into these three different areas for you. The pre-retirees. So about 50% of you that answer the poll that are still working, that have money going into 401k plans, maybe 403b plans if you work at a hospital or a nonprofit or at the university, for example. Those are 403b plans. Then there's another segment that really is focused on the retirees, so the people who are no longer contributing to 401k plans. And then there's this third focus on businesses and business owners and some enhanced benefits for these owners to provide a retirement plan to their employees. So it's a three-level kind of stool or three-legged stool that we're going to kind of go through. And basically, before I jump to the next one, what we're going to cover are some of these areas. So the participant, the pre-retiree, we have catch-up contribution changes coming up. We have self-correction changes coming up. Now we have simple and SEP contribution Roth changes coming up. And that's for this year. For next year, 2 new ways to save for emergencies. We'll talk a little bit about that new account that will be available. We have this year employers putting money into Roth. Again, it's a shift towards Roth in some of these new rules. And so when we look over on the right-hand side, for participants in the plan, there's some tax credits that are coming that are good for the business owners. There's some student loan strategies, I guess is the right word to use, that are now going to be available, will be available next year. And then in 25, there's going to be some requirements around plans for auto enrollment and auto escalation. In other words, a step up in their savings at the participant level going into plans. And then for some of you who answered that you're retired, there's a few things here that really are going to impact you. And that is the required minimum distribution rules that are changing again. And then, we didn't have a lot of people say that in the poll that they had 529 accounts. We're going to cover that because there's a big legacy planning strategy potentially in these old 529 accounts that are going to be part of the new rules starting next year. So that's a lot. And so let's jump into some details for you. And the first detail is catch-up contributions. Thank you, Tronny, for the catch-up image on the screen. This catch-up contribution affects a few different people, and the changes that are coming this coming year. So not as much this year. So it doesn't, but there's still a planning issue around this. So what we're going to have is all catch-up contributions in 2024 are going to have this big change. And the big change is the Roth contributions. And so the 401k plan contributions on the catch-up side in 401k plans for next year have to go into a Roth account. Okay, so that's the big driver here with the catch-up contributions. So currently, if you're a business owner, you're putting money into an account and you're doing catch-up because you're 50 years old or older. By the way, for this calendar year, and I'll talk about this a couple times, but for this year, 2023, the catch-up contribution is $7,500. Okay, so 50 and older, $7,500. This year, you can do it pre-tax. Okay, next year, catch-up contributions have to go to the Roth, which is post-tax. Okay, now the benefit is those post-tax contributions, give you a Roth 101 education. That's tax-free growth. And there's no required minimum distributions on those dollars, but you do pay taxes on that money that goes into those accounts today. Okay. One of the things that we see here that may be an issue is I get on the 401k side is these Roth contributions that are after tax are going to be focused really on earners who are making $145,000 a year. And so those are the people, again, that maybe own the business or key employees of the business that are at higher income levels. That's where we're going to make this shift. So under $145,000 a year, you're fine. You don't have to make the catch up into the Roth. You can still do pre-tax, but over that is when they change the rules on it. So that's coming next year. So talk to your advisor about maybe what you should be doing this year. If this is your last year of pre-tax catch-up contributions, and how does that fit into your strategy going forward? Okay. Let's see here. What else on there? Something, from ages from 60 to 63. Now, this is an odd scenario. It's only for this group of people. There's going to be an ability to put more money into your retirement accounts. And this is going to apply both to 401k plans and for the small business that has a simple plan, it's going to apply to them as well. Okay. So from ages 60 to 63 on a 401k plan, the participant's going to be able to put in $10,000 of catch-up contribution or 150% of the regular catch-up. Okay. Now, the catch-up right now, as I said, is $7,500. So 150% of the regular catch-up is $11,250. Okay. So just by coincidence, I'm turning 58 in a week. And so this will kick in right when I turn 60. And so I'll be able to, just like a lot of our clients that are hitting this age band, will be able to spike up their catch-up contributions. Now, what's interesting about this, it's only for the people that are between 60 and 63. You see Brian kind of laughing. It's the only thing we can come up with is that they passed it for this age group, this band of people, because from a budgeting standpoint, they didn't know how it would impact tax revenue if they increased it to 64 years old, 65 years old, 70-year-olds. So as of now, it's only for this age group of 60 to 63.
So Mike, would you say then, according to these rules right now, if you're 64, then your catch-up would go back to the lower amount of $7,500 in today's terms? Is that what you interpret?
Yeah, the one thing that's come up is they're going to index some of these catch-up contributions, for inflation. So that's good, but that's how we would interpret it at this point. Yeah, so basically you've got 60, 61, 62, and probably 63, right? All of 63 of age to make these additional catch-up contributions. So it's a planning mechanism, of course, and then if you're making more than $145,000, you're not going to be able to make it to the pre-tax accounts, only to the post-tax or the Roth accounts. Okay. All right. Anything else? I think that's probably covers that part of the catch-up, don't you think, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. This doesn't really apply to most of you, but there is some self-correction rules that are changing. So this is an inadvertent planned violation. So this is for the people on the call in the webinar that manage plans, either for their businesses or their business owners. Maybe they have somebody doing it for them, or you're working with a record keeper. But if there's a mistake made, you basically, in the past, you used to have to go through a whole IRS approval, and you never want to get them involved if you can avoid it. Okay, so now if there's a mistake made, you can self-correct it. You basically can do this. This starts immediately, as it says here in the bottom right-hand corner, and there's really no submission to an IRS portal that you have to put in. So plan that has some mistakes that were literally a mistake. Somebody contributed too much. There was too much match putting in. You can reverse those and then be okay with having to put it into what's called the Employee Compliance Resolution System. I guess the only thing that you need to keep in mind with this, that if you get audited at the plan level and the IRS discovers that there was a mistake, then this doesn't apply. I guess makes sense. Yep.
And on that previous slide, Mike, somebody asked a question about what does 145 mean? Is it at the individual level or at the household level? And it's at the individual level, because the employer is only going to have visibility on your wages and your taxable income. So when they say 145 has to go into the Roth catch-ups, it's going to be at the individual level. So if you have a spouse that's, in another plan, he or she's going to be at that level from his or her salaries versus your plan. So
Good, very
Yeah.
good,
Somebody
very
asked that
good
question, yeah.
footnote. That's a
Yeah.
good, it's a good question. And it's also another planning issue. You know, how do you work around that? There's some opportunities there maybe to manage how are you contributing to these retirement accounts?
I think the similar question came up on the previous slide too, for earners over 145. Is that individual as well?
It's individual as well, Trona. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for the clarification. So let's jump into it's kind of what's going on here with the Roth contributions for simples and for SEPs. Okay, so this starts in 2023. This is a big change for small business owners and participants in 2023. You can and you really need to talk to your advisor about this as well. But both of these plans will allow you to make contributions on a Roth basis. Okay, so, and this is contributions for both the employee contributions and the employer contributions. Okay, this is especially helpful if you're managing a plan, you're a business owner, and you have younger participants that are in your plan. They can now elect to put money into that plan on a Roth basis. They're early in their careers. This is my bias, at least, and I know Brian and I have talked about this on some of our planning sessions, but these younger people earlier in their careers, most likely as they grow in their careers, their income's going to go up. As their income goes up, their tax brackets go up, therefore they pay more in taxes. So somebody in their 20s, maybe in their 30s, who are contributing on an after-tax basis with tax-free growth, which is what the Roth provides, is a terrific benefit to that worker. And there also is some planning issues around that, and we can kind of get into a couple of examples because there's more areas that kind of focus on these changes. So this is right now. This can happen immediately as long as the plan allows it to happen. So there might be some adjustments that you have to do, or the administrator has to be able to do to allow these Roth contributions to go in. That's on the simple plan. Now the SEP plan, remember, simplified employee pension plans. That's what the SEP stands for. Okay, those contributions are made by the employer only. Okay, and in the past, those could not go into a Roth. So the employer would put the money in for the employee, and they could put in up to $66,000 this year, take a tax deduction. And in the past, those were tax deferred accounts. No, now those can go into this Roth account as well. So it's a pretty big change. And, I'm sure, Brian, you got some examples. I got one example where this is going to be really potentially helpful for a lot of our clients. Is they've got simple plans or SEP plans, and they share with us through the planning process that they want to retire, let's say in 5 years, buy a second home in Arizona. Okay. Well, how are we going to pay for that second home in Arizona? Well, if we take money out of your simple plan or your SEP plan to pay for it, that's a taxable event. But if now we have a designated tax-free, if you will, bucket of funds to use for that purchase, or at least for that down payment, you can make that transfer, take the money out, not pay taxes on the gains, and use it for that second home. And so it really becomes a pretty powerful tax strategy.
Yeah. And a lot of people are disqualified to putting Roths in an individual Roth IRA, and because of their income is too large. Well, now if they have a SEP plan or a simple plan, there is no income limitations to put money into a Roth account within your employer or a SEP plan.
That's a great point. And the Roth income limits haven't gone up. That wasn't part of the Secure 2.0. So this does give that higher earner the potential to put money into a tax-free account that they couldn't do it through an IRA. Yep. All right. Brand new for next year, 2024. So we don't have any real planning to do for this one yet, except maybe start thinking about it. If you're running a plan, how are you going to offer this? But this is a ability for participants who are fearful of having assets tied up in a retirement account to put some money into a retirement account. Again, trying to drive more participation. What basically will happen with this is an emergency savings account will be created within the 401k plan, and a participant can put up to $2,500 into that account. It has to be made to the Roth part of the plan, or if you will, an after-tax accounts. They can't put it in pre-tax. And the reason is because when they pull the money out, they're not going to be subject to the penalties that you would normally have when you're pulling money out of a 401k plan before the age of 59 and a half. So these are only employee contributions, and so an employer can't add to this emergency fund, but the employee, if they leave your company, they can roll that emergency fund dollars into their Roth IRA account. So again, pretty powerful planning tool. Take $2,500 out of your paycheck, pay yourself first, put it into this emergency fund. If you find that you don't need it, $2,500 is the max too. You can't do $2,500 a year. It's just $2,500. If you don't need it, you can take that money and roll it to an IRA, and it can grow for that, for the employee's lifetime on a tax-free basis. There is one thing, sorry, to our highly compensated employees and clients, you're not going to be able to use this. So again, the business owner is considered highly compensated. Frankly, no matter how much they make, their family members are considered highly compensated. Again, no matter how much they make, but the highly compensated person cannot contribute to the emergency fund account that will start up for next year. All right. How about from the standpoint when we look at what is another immediate change, permitting employers and employees putting more money into the Roth accounts. Okay, specifically, the contributions going in from the matching, and it's called non-elective contributions. Non-elective is just when somebody doesn't tell you what to do with it. Most plans, people will tell you how to invest the money. So this is for matching contributions, immediately can go into 401k Roth accounts. Okay. So in other words, all employer contributions, try to simplify this, all employer contributions can go into a Roth. Okay. In the past, only the employee contributions could go into a Roth. So again, see this shift kind of from the pre-tax to the post-tax and encouraging that. Okay.
Mike, I really like this one because I have a lot of clients that are participants that are in 401ks, and they were putting 100% of their own money in the Roth option, but they had a really generous employee was doing matches. Well, now that money was always in this pre-tax, smaller, smaller bucket, and they were managing both tax-free money and then pre-tax money. Well, now with this new change, they will have just one bucket of tax-free or Roth money, even if they have an employee match. So I think it's really going to simplify things going forward.
100% agree. And what it also does, again, from the perspective of say a little bit longer term planning, it will create larger buckets of these tax-free accounts like you were talking about. Yeah. And remember the required minimum distributions that we still have to talk about, they're not subject to Roth accounts. So we'll have lower required minimum distributions. And if you look at this potentially as a legacy asset or an estate planning asset, you can pass these on to your kids. There's some rules around this. You can pass this on to your kids, and they can, not take any income out of it for 10 years. And then it's tax-free because it's been a tax-free account, so a lot of benefits to this. But again, got to look at your specific situation and say, does it make sense to have more money going into Roth accounts versus pre-tax accounts? And it really depends on what the goals are a little bit further down the road and what the current tax rates are for you as an individual.
Yep.
But we do like that one. Gives us a lot of flexibility. Okay. All right, this one in yellow here across the top, the enhancement of tax credits. This is specifically for our business owner clients that don't have a plan right now. Don't have a plan, government's going to pay you to set one up. And they're going to start that this year as well. And so with employers with up to 50 employees, this new tax credit will apply to. Small businesses with 50 to 100 employees also have some sort of ability to get some credits. And then in the current 3-year startup credit has been enhanced. So let me give you a couple of details on this. Again, if this applies to you, you have a business, you don't have a plan set up yet, give us a call. We'll set it up and we'll show you how these credits will help pay for it. But the credits for with smaller up to 50 employees, I'm just going to read this off my screen so I make sure I get it exactly right. The credits equal to 100% of the amount contributed by the employer up to $1,000 per employee. Okay, so these are credits, these aren't deductions. So this is a good deal for the business to be putting money into these accounts. The employer receives a credit equal to 100% in years 1 and 2. So this year in 24, 75% in the 3rd year, 50% in the 4th year, and 25% in the 5th year. So it steps down is how this kind of credit works for the business. If you have 50 to 100 employees, it phases out a lot quicker depending on the number of employees past 50. And employees earning more than $100,000 per year are excluded. Again, trying to drive more participation for the lower income participant is part of this whole strategy of Secure 2.0. How about this current 3-year setup? How does that change? Again, generally in the past, the enhancement on this has been in the past 50% of plan expenses up to a maximum of $5,000. You could get a credit for starting up a plan. Now that's increased to 100% of plan expenses with still the maximum cap of $5,000. And that's for these smaller employee groups with 50 employees or less. Okay. So again, if you don't have a plan right now and you want to set one up, let us know. We can figure out a way for you to get these credits that'll help offset that cost. Okay. One thing that's come up that's also very interesting that will start next year is matching employer contributions for student loan payments. Okay. So employers will be permitted to make matching contributions under a 401k plan or a 403b plan or a simple IRA account towards a participant's loan repayments. Okay. Government employees can also do this. Most of the people on the call are not in that environment. If you are, let us know, but it's basically the same rules. So if an employee is paying for student loans, the reason that this thing is set up is the loan payments can qualify for the employee to receive a match, but it can go against their loans. So, as an example, let's say Lucy graduated from the U and she works here at 360 Financial. We have a very generous retirement plan, as you might expect. And she would like to invest in that plan, but she decides she just doesn't make enough money to pay her loans and to invest. So she's missing out on the company match that we provide. So in 2024, 360 can change her plan, and the plan policy will allow for those match dollars to go towards paying off the student loans. So it's really a nice benefit. We've got some law firm groups that we work with. A lot of times the attorneys, especially the associate attorneys, have large loan balances. So there's definitely some planning tools around here for that younger workforce. And it's also a nice advantage for you to hire younger people when you're saying, hey, our plan has a great match, and we can also use that match to offset some of your loan repayment and get you out of debt faster.
So Mike, let me clarify what you just said. So Lucy works for you. she's not putting any of her own contributions into your 401k plan or our 401k plan, but she's
Yep.
writing a check to her student loan for, let's say, X amount of dollars. That would make her eligible to get a 360 company match in her 401k plan, even though she took $0 out of her own paycheck to go into the plan. That would have been the requirement of her coworkers, but because she's making those student loan contribution or payments, you as the employer are going to put money into her 401k as a company match.
You got it. Yep.
So just clarify, I think people really want to understand that and what that means, that, hey, making student loan payments makes me eligible for my company match at my employer.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So they kind of get the best of both worlds. It does cost
Absolutely.
the employer money, but the employee can pay off their debt, and not miss that matching contribution,
Exactly.
you know?
Yep.
Now, some employers might be like, well, how do we monitor this? You know,
Yeah.
and so
That's
the
what we
one,
have. Yeah, we have 2
Go
more
ahead.
years to figure that out, right?
yeah, we do have that. One thing that was in the Secure Act is they just said, you know, it's basically the employee is responsible for being honest with you, that they're paying this, you know, that they're paying off student loans, you know,
Yeah.
so there will be a little bit of work on this from the mechanics of how to manage it and organize it. But it's gonna happen next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Another one that starts up, and this is actually starts up in a couple of years, and it's Billy, and this is a big change in 2025, and it's all new 401k plans and 403b plans will be required to include automatic enrollment for eligible participants. So all new plans will be required, so it says here on the bottom right-hand side, to auto-enroll their employees. Okay. And they're going to have to increase the amount that goes into their employees' account on an annual basis. You know, so the minimum is 3% that they can start off out in 2025, could be as high as 10. And then the auto increase is 1 percentage point a year until it reaches a maximum of 15%. Now, remember, the participant has the power here. They can always opt out of this. They're not forced to put money into the retirement account and forced to get savings. But we do find with auto enrollment, not automatic auto mandate enrollment, but auto enrollment in general does drive participation rates because most employees don't opt out of the plan once they're already in it. Okay. Now this is only for new plans. Again, to the key word there, new. Any plans in existence before this 2025, they're all grandfathered in. They don't have to automatically enroll participants into it. What else is there that's interesting on this one? There are some exemptions. Small companies, 10 or fewer employers, church plans they carved out of this, government plans they've carved out of this, new businesses within the first 3 years of operation they've carved out of this. And it only applies to employers that are deciding to start a plan, in that 2025 time period. Okay. So we're not mandating a plan has to be started. The employer, the business owners, still have the ability to not have a plan. Okay, some of you, number of you, about 50% said yet you're retired. So here's one that's going to really impact your planning, at least for a portion of you. And this is the increase of the required minimum distributions, the RMDs. Okay, now here I'll give you a little bit of history. 70 and a half used to be the rule. We always went by 70 and a half, and then they changed this a couple of years ago. And they raised it all the way up to 72. So we got an 18-month reprieve from taking required minimum distributions. And generally speaking, if you want, required minimum distributions, that first year, and it's based on the life expectancy table, and it's based on your account balance, but that first year, it's about 4% of your traditional IRAs or traditional 401k balances, so to give you an idea. So now, a couple of years ago, we pushed it, actually it was 2019, we pushed it up to 72, Congress did. Okay. There was a little bit of a takeaway on that, and I'll just go into it real quickly. And the takeaway was they said, okay, we'll give you 18 months. But remember this thing called a stretch IRA, where you could leave your IRAs to your non-spousal beneficiary, typically your children, your adult children in most cases. And then they could leave that money inside of that IRA and they could use it for their entire lifetime and take out required minimum distributions every year based on how old they were. Okay. This rule that changed from 70.5 to 72 also basically shrunk that lifetime window down to 10 years. So again, more planning needs to get done in that 10-year time period, but that's what happened. The 10-year time period, we thought we might get some sort of reprieve, at least some better definition around some of that. And the Secure 2.0, they didn't touch it. So it looks like it's sticking around, at least for the foreseeable, future on that 10-year window. Here is the benefit, though. They did raise this, and then there's no attachment that we've been able to find from 72 to 73. Okay. And then in 10 years, it goes from 73 to 75. Okay. So if you were 72 last year, you still have to take your required minimum distribution. So this is really for you folks here turning 70, 72 this year. They can skip the required minimum distribution for 2023 and start taking it next year. And then, if you were born in 1960 or later, the required minimum distribution will go up to 75 in 10 years from now. So this applies for anybody born from 1951 to 1959. If you turned 72 last year, you still are on the 72 required minimum distribution cadence. But you get a year reprieve if you turn 72 this year. Did I do a good job there, Brian? That one's important.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So here's my sarcasm a little bit coming through. Remember, I told you that, if you're in a scenario where your required minimum distribution was extended from 70.5 to 72. And I said, well, there's no gotcha. There's no catch to this one, like there was when they reduced the stretch. I'm just curious, and I'm throwing it out there. It's complete speculation. I've seen nothing about this, but are we kind of setting the table for extending the full retirement age on Social Security benefits to align with the required minimum distribution extension? That right now, again, most people get Social Security benefits at 66 or 67, would they extend that out further? I guess stay tuned. There's nothing here that we know that would tell us about that. All right. So I think we've covered that one. How about for some of you who have money in 529 accounts? Some big changes going on there starting in 2024. It's a little confusing. We almost have more questions than answers on this one. But what's going to end up happening is if there's excess money in a 529 account, so you set one up for your child, your grandkid, they didn't need all the money that's in there. What do you do with it? Brian, I know you get that question, right? When you're setting these up. It's like, well, how about if I don't need it? How about if Junior gets a scholarship and those funds aren't needed and she's a great athlete or she's a merit scholar, so now there is some solutions here that will start up next year. Those 529 assets potentially can be transferred into Roth accounts. And they could continue to grow tax-free in those Roth accounts forever. Now, that makes them just a wonderful legacy tool. I mean, I've seen lots of times where there's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, maybe small amounts that are in these accounts when the kid is done with school. And we usually do a pretty good job at getting right down to the dollar amount, but frequently might have oversaved or the performance was better than expected, and therefore the accounts grew a little bit more than expected. Now we can move those dollars into a Roth. Now, here's what a few things are that are questions. The beneficiary of the 529 account. So again, let's say in my case, one of my kids, so put money into a 529 account. For Ethan, he doesn't need all that money. And there's about $6,000, let's just say, sitting there as an example, when he graduates from college. Well, then I can move that money into a Roth IRA. But the rules right now say that those Roth IRA accounts have to be set up in the name of the child, of Ethan in this case, so, and the account has to be open for at least 15 years. So, and we can't also put a lot of money in the last few years and ramp it all up to try to do this conversion, to a Roth IRA account. So there's going to be limits, it's going to be, roughly, I think 6,500, it will be $6,500 on the 2023, because that's, kind of the, it should be 2023, it'll be $7,500 really, I think should be for the amount that you can put over to the Roth account up to a cap of $35,000. The 7,500 comes from how much can you contribute to a Roth this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the provisions seem to be aimed at really supporting kind of middle income savers who have been making contributions to 529 accounts, and then doing so maybe kind of in lieu of what they were putting into their own retirement accounts. The flaw with it is this beneficiary alignment, so a question is, can we just change the beneficiary? So Ethan's account is no longer needed, going back to my example. And then I decide I might as well change the beneficiary to Mike, to me. Then I put into my Roth IRA. I mean, is that okay? We don't know. Doesn't seem like it will be, but as of right now, there's nothing on there that really clarifies it. And there's the 529 beneficiary has to have earned income, so when do they get that earned income? Is it before they go to college or after they go to college? When could we actually transfer this money to a Roth? And does the beneficiary, if you do change the beneficiary, does it restart this 15-year clock on these accounts? So this one, I think we need to stay tuned. We definitely need some more information from the lawmakers on how this is going to work. Do you have anything, Brian, besides stay tuned
Yes.
on this provision?
I think stay tuned, and it just, again, takes one of those objections I hear a lot of time for, young parents with kids that are thinking about planning for their college and says, what if my kid does go to the military or has this, scholarship? Well, now they have this Roth, escape, pull the ripcord escape clause to say, hey, you can now convert to Roth. Again, we need a little bit more detail. Who gets the Roth? Does the parents? Does the child? But at least there is an exit strategy besides using it for college costs or college expenses.
Yeah. It could be
I think
another legacy
they're moving in the right
account,
direction. Yeah. So
Yeah, it gives you more freedom, that's for sure. They've capped it. There'll be more that comes out of it. But again, can you imagine? Okay, I've got $35,000. I've oversaved on these accounts. As an example, I moved $35,000 into my 22-year-old daughter's account, and that can grow for tax-free for 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that will be a substantial nest egg, or if you will, legacy that you could leave to your kids.
absolutely. Yeah. Nice way to jumpstart it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's a big part of it. I know we said we'd be 45 minutes. We're right on the 45-minute mark. And so we want to have a little time for some Q&A if there's any other additional questions that have popped up. These are the things that we talked about. We did not cover everything in this Secure 2.0. If you're the sort of person that is interested or have done in the past, qualified charitable distributions out of your IRA account towards a 501c3 under this new section 307, part of the code here, the Secure 2.0 code, there's some more flexibility. Those dollars can go to a what's called a CRAT, a charitable remainder trust. They could go to a CGA, a charitable gift annuity. They don't have to go directly to the 501c3 anymore. They still can, they just don't have to. So there might be some planning around that you could do. We didn't talk about indexing, both the qualified charitable distribution and the IRA catch-up contributions. Remember, the IRA catch-up's been $1,000 since 2006. It's never gone up. That's going to increase based on indexing for inflation. And There's some new options for surviving spouses that are inheriting an IRA account. That again probably doesn't apply to most people, but might to our surviving spouses that are clients. And then there's some updates to the 72T distribution rules. And if you're taking equal installments out of your retirement accounts to avoid paying the 10% tax penalty before the age of 59 and a half, this is an important rule change for you, but also not often utilized. So just know that there's a rule change and ask your wealth manager about how that might benefit you. So we've covered a lot of ground, and we've covered it all about 45 minutes, and hopefully it gave you a lot of insight into these new rules, started getting you thinking about how you might be able to take advantage of them to increase your wealth and also help your employees increase theirs. So if there's any other questions, would be happy to answer them at this time. And I know that we're also going to share this webinar in a recording, right, Tony? And we can send this out to the participants as well.
Yes, we sure will. We will be sending out the recording of the webinar. We will also have a key takeaway sheet that will also go with it that summarizes these notes as well. Again, if you have any questions, we encourage you to raise your hand or type them in the Q&A. And Mike and Brian would be happy to answer them either directly or indirectly. So with that, I'll let everybody take a moment to type any questions based on any of those topics. Otherwise, Brian, do you have any thoughts or added items that you would like to add to the mix of what Mike has already covered?
I think Mike did a great job. I think it's really kind of setting the tone of what's going on, both at Washington and even on Main Street, of trying to get our society, to start saving. Mike had that grim statistic of 50% of people don't have anything in retirement saving. So obviously Congress is trying to put every effort forward to get people to participate in the plans, and also for small business owners to start plans. I think you may not be a business owner, but you may work for a business owner that does not have a plan at your workplace. Be great to kind of go into his or her office and say, hey, I learned something on this webinar at 360 Financial about you could really, open up a plan and take a lot of those costs, those, and not put them on your expense report, get a credit come from the government. So, maybe that's a way. And if your business owner is open to having a discussion, we would love to have a discussion with your employer about maybe starting a plan in your own workplace.
Yep, that's a great point. So there are some real nice benefits to the participants who can contribute to them, and that's obviously one of the big driving factors. Yeah. The other thing I'll just bring up, sometimes because 2.0 gets so detailed, and there's a lot of details in here. The one thing we sometimes forget about is some of the basic changes that have come up that have nothing to do with 2.0. Elective deferrals now on 401k plans, they went up $2,000. So, now everybody on this call, if you have a 401k plan, you can put $22,500 into your plan. That's the max. It used to be $20,500. The catch-up contribution on 401k plans went up by $1,000. So that's pretty substantial as well, from $6,500 up to $7,500. So if you want to try to create some wealth for your retirement, you can now put $30,000 away, out of your own paycheck, if you will, plus the match. And if your employer has a profit sharing contribution on top of that, but you can at least take $30,000, which is a pretty substantial amount compared to where it was, and put that in. So I don't want to lose sight of kind of the real basic planning issues as well.
We do have a question here. What things are required to transfer a traditional IRA to a Roth? I'm 63 years old. I know a lot of variables.
Brian, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to take that one?
Well, if you have a traditional IRA, that's called a Roth conversion. So you're going to be ending up paying the taxes on those dollars that you move from a traditional IRA to an individual Roth IRA. So again, take some planning. Obviously, if you're in a higher tax bracket, it might not be the best time to do a Roth conversion, but if you're in a year where you're in a lower tax bracket, you can really take advantage of fulfilling a Roth conversion at some of the lowest brackets we may have seen or see today that we may not see in the future. As we know, the current tax brackets are sunsetting in a couple of years. So this has been a conversation in my conference room with a lot of my clients. I'm sure with you too, Mike.
Mhm. Absolutely. So to answer the question, there are a lot of variables. Talk to with your advisor. Look at the way that it's going to impact your current taxes if you'd make that shift. Brian's point's absolutely right on. If for some reason your income is down this year, that might be a fantastic opportunity to do this conversion from the traditional to the Roth. The other thing that wasn't part of this question, because the person who said they were 63 years old, but how about the person who's 72 years old? And there are some benefits to not having to take your RMDs for another year, where you might want to, again, talk to your advisor to see if it makes sense to convert some of your money from your traditional 401k plans to your Roth account while you're not forced to do RMDs this year. This planning tool works best usually in the kind of mid 60s to 70 range if you've also delayed Social Security, but it might be a scenario where you could move some money at pretty low tax brackets this year too.
Yep.
Anything else? Nope, it looks like that's about it, huh, Troni?
It does. So I think this concludes our Secure 2.0 updates. And if you're interested in speaking with Mike, Brian, or Emily, our client development manager, we'll be reaching out with a scheduling link. And you can go online for a brief introductory conversation. Otherwise, we will move on. If others are interested in learning more about 360 Financial, I'll let Mike explain our process and how we work.
Thank you, Troni. Thanks everybody again for participating into this webinar and learning about all these new tax law changes. Part of our job is to educate you. So this little segment here is just a little bit more about 360, especially if you're new to us. If you're not a client, or if you want a refresher on our process, but it's really for the new people who came onto this because maybe they were referred here and they were told this is a good webinar. Or they came in because they heard about it from somewhere else. I want you to have an understanding of kind of what we do, how we do things here at 360 Financial. And so all I can tell you is we don't believe that money is the end all be all. We think we're going to do our planning based on your goals, and kind of what matters to you. And that's really what everything has to be. It's solving these whys. What's important to you, what matters to you around your family, what matters to you around your occupation. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What do you do for fun? How are we going to do more of that whenever we hit that phase, quote unquote, that's called retirement, which we know is drastically different in the 21st century than it was in the 20th century. But what does recreation look like? And really zeroing in, I guess would be a word for it, but really just focusing on your goals, what you're trying to accomplish. And then we build up the money strategy to answer the whys, and so it's really just this focus on, yes, we need an investment strategy, but we also have to have a strategy around this acronym of FORM: family, occupation, recreation, and money. And, as we're building out that strategy, one thing we learned in 2022 is there are certain things we can control and we can't control. We cannot, as best we would like to hope we can't control the stock market. It goes up and it goes down, and we know that. But what we can control is our philosophy around how we're investing, how much risk we're taking or not taking. How do we react emotionally or non-emotionally to the market changes and the conditions? How do we stay in touch with our clients? How about you as a client? What sort of advice do you get through a difficult time period? In other words, let's make sure that we control our philosophy of how we work with the clients. Long-term, patient, setting up goal-based advice. Then what we can focus on are, again, another layer of what we control, the planning process. discovering what you need, designing a plan, and then deploying and monitoring that plan throughout that strategic initiative is crucial for success. And then do we have a process and do we follow it? And from an investment standpoint, we have investment committee meetings every other week. We're having one today after the market closes to talk about what Chairman Powell said at today's news conference and how that might impact our investments, as an example. So we can control these aspects. And then in the middle is this kind of area of this life wealth plan, and that's what we call it, where we take your life goals, your family, your occupation, your recreation, and we match it up with your money goals. Hence the life wealth plan. So, Brian, any input there that I might have missed?
No, it's that having that conversation around a table of, just really getting to know our clients and getting to know them more than just on their, what's on their investment statements. So that's what I really enjoy doing, and it's been a really good process for us to get involved with our clients on a deeper level.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, we started up the firm in 1995, and it's based on this premise that if we just do right by the client and we kept helping them reach their goals, they'll tell their friends about us, and the firm will grow. And that's exactly what's happened over the 27-year time period. And then the reason it happens again is we have this process, and we have this process based on let's manage and guide you through these impactful financial events, whether those are retirement, things like today, like Secure 2.0, really play into those retirement questions. Over here on the left is your legacy, whether that's estate planning, gifting, inheritance to your family. Maybe it's charitable giving. There's a number of different things, but you can see what we have here are about 6 impactful financial events that we really want to lead our clients through and help them address these. In some areas will be a focus on your risk management, your insurance, and then how does that impact your family security, for example. So if you own a business, how does it impact the business security? So there's a number of aspects to this event wheel, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we normally walk through with our clients. And then everybody asks about our investment process. I'll give you a broad overview on the investment process. It's really based on 2 main criteria. Let's build a foundation of low cost, usually exchange traded fund type of investments that we can use in a portfolio based on how much risk is appropriate for the client or how much risk is not appropriate for the client, and start layering in this foundation of investments, that are focused maybe on fixed income or bonds. Now that bond rates have gone up, this has become a little bit more appealing than it was maybe even a year or 2 ago. But looking at companies and baskets of stocks of companies that are innovators, and are dominating their business sector and are paying dividends. Those are the foundational aspects of a good portfolio. And then what we do is we build on top of that kind of this leadership approach, and saying that there's probably 4 or 5 areas in the market where we can actually try to enhance, returns by focusing on these leadership areas, these momentum areas. And that gives us the ability to be nimble, not set it and forget it. We're never that way. But we can also, as we're nimble, we can also look at where are there opportunities and try to take advantage of those. One thing that's interesting is we have not had, as an example, in the foundation piece, we have not had anything in international stocks as a firm until 2 weeks ago, in the last 3 years. And so that was by design. And so now we've added that. Brian's joined us here recently. So his strategy is maybe a little bit different than what we've been doing in the Wayzata office, but we're matching those strategies up. And again, it just shows that it's never set it and forget it. Sometimes we'll go against the grain and do certain things that don't seem to be quote unquote popular. And that's sometimes what we're doing in that leadership when we see momentum start coming up sooner than what's being recognized by the popular press. A good example, I guess, is and we're never going to be right 100% of the time, but we started buying home builder stocks, a basket of home builder stocks back during COVID. Nobody was buying home builder stocks back in COVID times. But that's an example of sort of an opportunity we were out there looking for. So we can give you more details. We can show you a proposal. If you want to see what a growth strategy looks like, for example, I'd be happy to send that out to you. But the process on the investments and the process on the life wealth area really just starts with, let's have a conversation. Let's show you a little bit of how our process works and see if it aligns to your goals. That's this fit area. If it does, we can go into the go area, which is get organized. Let's start pulling together your statements. Let's pull together your investments, your insurance, your estate plan documents. Let's start getting those organized, making sure that we can put in motion a plan that helps you and your family kind of move forward on what it is are your long-term goals based on family, occupation, recreation, and money. And then we just have to implement a plan, deploy it, and constantly review and realign it. So a typical client of ours, is getting at least a phone call every 90 days on different topics within the impactful financial events. They are coming in, we're doing a Zoom meeting twice a year. Maybe it's sometimes one a year if that's what they prefer, but at least it's an ongoing basis. We charge a fee for our service. The fee is just really based on the assets that we're managing, and it ranges from about 1.35% to 0.5%, and we'll customize that for you as well. But first step really is, if you're interested, you want to learn a little bit more, schedule a short time to get together, either on the phone, on a Zoom call, or in person here in Wayzata or in Elk River, and we can talk more about the process. We don't charge you for that; it just gives you an opportunity to learn more about it. So, anything there, Brian, that you want to add on to?
No, I think it just kind of, again, where we started is really starting to think about planning and think about retirement and think about investment strategy. So it's never too early to start and it's never too late to begin, is what I say. So it doesn't matter where you're at, just pick up a phone call or send us an email and we'll get connected with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to talking to you in the future. If you're a client, thank you very much for coming in to this webinar today. And we really do look forward to doing more webinars with you. And we're going to continue to do so. And until we see you next time, I think we're pretty good shape there as far as all the questions have been answered. And should be all set.
All right.
Anything, Troni, to wrap it up?
I was just going to say thank you, everyone, for your time today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.